Okay, so I'm back, and I'm just gonna pick up where I left off on the last one. So where I left off at the last one, I was talking about marriages, and I was talking about people I was married to, and I was also talking about the unborn son. So I do have more to say about that, and also I just need to clarify some more things. Not right now, but right after I'm done with this section, because there's a lot of things that still need to be cleared up as about myself in regards to some very relevant subjects. So I'll talk about that in a little bit, but I just want to finish where I left off on the last one. So I was talking about people I was married to. I explained that Nasir Jones would be the next physical person in line for such a position, being that Michael Jackson and Prince Roger Nelson Rogers, he has been eliminated physically as well. And I will talk more also about Michael Jackson and Prince soon, because they're very relevant. But there are a lot of relevant people, but Michael Jackson, he's very relevant, and well, a lot of people are, but each person is just relevant in their own way, if that makes sense. So there's a lot of relevant people, but I guess to rephrase that better, there are a lot of people that are relevant. Well, they're relevant. Everyone's relevant in their own way, basically. Everyone upon the earth, every spirit, everyone that's ever existed, they would just be relevant. Everyone's relevant in their own way. So everyone has a different reason as to why they're relevant. So but I will talk more about, more people specifically soon. I will get to that. Okay, so leaving off where I started. Picking up where I started. Picking up where I left off. Okay, so we're just going to go into Nasir Jones. Okay, so the issue with Nasir Jones is that Nas, the rapper, he's next for the position physically. He would be the next person to refer to. Like I said, if for some reason Patah is found unworthy of the position, and or he is found to be undesired to do the position, meaning he doesn't want to do the position. So basically, you would, like I said, you would go to the next person, because the issue is the show must go on. So people that are found unworthy for such positions, or just they're undesired to do the position, the show must go on, basically, is what that means. So, and that's how the monarchs in ancient times and throughout time, that's how they operated the monarchy system, because they would refer to the heir or the heiress, in the bloodline. They would refer to those individuals first for such positions in a dynasty. But even though if you were of a bloodline, if you were supposed to take you were supposed to take to the position based on, your bloodline, or just, in line for that position. If you were found to be unworthy, no matter who you were, you didn't get the position. The show went on, basically. No matter who was supposed to do it, if you weren't found worthy to do it, the show must go on. You still have to have a monarch for that kingdom. You still have to have certain tasks that are completed. So you know, even though say the princess was born or the prince was born, and you know from birth they were destined for that position, if they were found unworthy to do it or they didn't want to do it, the show had to go on because they had to have a reigner over the kingdom. So you know, basically the show must go on. That is how show business works, and that is how the monarchies work. A lot of things work that way, you know. So the show must go on. So basically, Nasir Jones would be the next physical individual in line for the position of my husband and the position of the to conceive the unborn son, being that he's physically still here, because this will not be an immaculate conception. As I previously stated, it is intended to be a physical conception. And I will also talk about all that stuff at some point, as far as like immaculate conception. That was not really used very much. It has been used throughout history in different circumstances, but that is usually not used very much. So I'll talk more about that at some point, but yeah, this is intended to be a physical conception. So, you know, I just want people to have the right knowledge, because I think people think, you know, I don't know, they're thinking a lot of things out here, so I don't want people to have the incorrect information, because that's really an issue. So, as I stated, Nasir Jones would be the next physical individual in line for that position, because I have already married him in a previous life cycle. Physically, I married him in a previous life cycle. But as I stated, you know, marriages and the spiritual bond that comes when you get married, that does withstand death, you know. So we are technically still married spiritually, okay? We're not married legally at this point, but spiritually we are married, and we are not conceptually married, because he was not my arranged marriage. So, but the issue with that, though, with Nasir Jones is, as I stated briefly in the last video, that the Hate Me Now video is really relevant for many reasons, and again, I have a whole section devoted to various movies and various music, songs, and just various you know, texts and literature, TV shows. It's a lot, really, way more than I thought. But like I said, I have a whole section devoted to that, so I'm not going to really talk about the whole video, Hate Me Now. I'm just going to really just focus on one part of that video, which is, as I stated, in that video, I would be symbolically, now we're talking symbolically, in that video, I would be the girl in silver body paint, dancing. You know, she's dancing on the pole, basically dancing around, in silver body paint. So that's who I would be symbolically in that video. And that's another thing I want to talk about, the different what symbolic means and the difference between literal and symbolic, because there's literal things and then there's symbolic things. So I just need to clear that up as well, because, you know, there's a difference. So, but moving on, basically, what that means is that there would be two women that Nasir Jones has married prior to myself. So that means, as I said, he has a wife that has a gold ring with a precious stone in it, which would be his primary spouse, and then he also has a wife that would have just a gold band on with no stones, and then you would have me, who would have a silver ring on, in that marriage. So basically what that means is that there's nothing wrong with that if there's just a marriage, but we're talking about a child and conceiving a child now. So the issue with that is that Ra, my father, he does not want me, he doesn't care about me having other husbands. The issue, well, he did, but he's over that. But the issue is that this is for the purpose, we're talking about conception of a child, the unborn son. So that's very relevant. He does not want me to demote myself in a marriage for the purpose of conceiving the unborn child. So what that means is that he wants me to conceive the child in a marriage where I have a gold ring with a stone in it, basically, is that he wants the unborn child to come from that marriage. And I do have that position with the marriage to Ptah, who is my arranged marriage. Again, he would be the first individual to refer to for this position. He is intended for that position. So we are conceptually married, me and Ptah, and we're also spiritually married. So that just basically comes before everything else, because if you have a conceptual bond and as well as a spiritual bond in marriage, that would override everything else. That would be your primary spouse, whoever you're conceptually as well as spiritually bonded with in marriage. So like as I stated, Ptah, he would be the first person to take that position, well, expected to do that position, and again, if he's found unworthy. So basically, this also physically, it eliminates Nazir Jones really from the position of the father of the unborn child, being that I am not a gold ring with a stone in his particular marriage. So that also would eliminate him to do the position, because you know we're talking about conception of the unborn child right now. This is why I'm talking about the marriages. Like I said, marriage in general is it's a whole nother subject all on its own. So I'm just literally talking about marriage right now for the purpose of the unborn son, and to just also clear up any incorrect information that may be out there. So again, so Nazir Jones, he's found to be unworthy because of his previous his marital status, basically. I would be a silver position in that marriage. So Ra does not want me to demote myself in a marriage where the child would be conceived. So that would make Nazir Jones unworthy of the position. Not because he's not worthy to do it, because I'm sure he is. He's a very smart person from what I've seen. But, you know, just off of that fact. So you would go to the next person, who I stated previously would be Jon Bon Jovi. Now, I'm unaware right now of Jon Bon Jovi's marital status. So that's something I have to look into. But to my knowledge, he has been married. I'm not sure if he's currently still married, if he's been divorced. But really, divorce... See, I want to also talk about divorce that we have going on here. Now, divorce... Now, when you go get a traditional divorce or annulment nowadays, that would be you are disconnecting from that person legally. That's what a divorce is nowadays. The issue with divorce is that just disconnects the legal bond. You know, that's all. Even when you get divorced, if you get a traditional divorce, you are still spiritually bonded from those vows you took during the wedding, you know what I mean? So a divorce, basically, it just frees you from it frees you legally from that person. It doesn't free you spiritually, a divorce, okay? So we got to get something clear, okay? So, you know, I just want to be clear on that, because a lot of people think, oh, I'm divorced, that means I'm not married anymore. That's not true. You're just not legally married anymore to that person. And you know, you're spiritually still you're spiritually still married to that individual. And if that individual was your arranged marriage, you are still conceptually married to that individual. So yes, divorce means nothing, basically, unless you get a spiritual divorce, which I will talk about at some point. But that is different than a traditional divorce that we have going on. Basically, the traditional divorces that you have nowadays that, you know, people get, that again just disconnects you legally from that person. A spiritual divorce, you know, that it would disconnect you spiritually from that individual. So that's a different kind of divorce. And I'll talk more about that. But, you know, in ancient times, divorce was very rare. It was very rare to get a divorce of any kind. So, you know, basically, you know, you really had to have a good reason to get a spiritual divorce, to be granted that. Because you had to be granted that. Anyone couldn't just go there arguing about any little thing like, oh, I want a spiritual divorce from this person. It really had to be something significant as to why you would be granted that divorce, because it was very rare, and you know, it was it's not something that was easily granted, because it was a long it was a process. It was a process, a spiritual divorce. So I'll talk more about that at some point. So I'm not aware of John Bon Jovi's marital status. I do know, though, this is what I do know. Excuse me. Sorry. I do know that he has been married at least twice in previous life cycles. Okay, so that's also an issue, because that's basically, I just really have to look into John Bon Jovi's marital status, because that he would basically be in the same boat as Nasir Jones, because he would be found to be unworthy of the position, not the position of marriage, but the position of conception of the unborn child. Because again, as I stated, Ra does not want me to demote myself for purposes of conception of the child. Marriage and conception are two different things. Okay, so marriage is fine, but not conception of the child. So we would move on. Now listen, when I made these videos before, I was like unaware of some things myself, because I really thought that these were the only individuals other than Patah that I had married. And I was wrong. There are other people I have married. Okay, so